Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get a hell yeah!
Hell yeah, guys. What is up? It is your host, Mark Henry Jr., doing a solo edition of Party on Broad, and you can follow Party on Broad at Party on Broad on the Painted Lines, at the Painted Lines on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. _. Thank you for joining us on today's show. We are 1 day away from the draft. This is a very special edition of Party on Broad for me, just like the last edition was. If you're watching this live or if you're watching this later, thank you for joining us. And please go check out my top 50 overall big board from earlier on this week. That's what we're going to be using to look at to sort these guys as I go through my mock draft for the draft tomorrow night. And who knows, I always forget how long the draft takes, but at this time tomorrow, the Eagles could be up on the board at number 12 overall. I'm going to put this draft in the big screen because you don't need to see my ugly mug anymore. And we're going to go through the draft 1 to 32. I'm not going to dive as deep on the players as I did in the top 50 overall big board. I'm going to really talk about the teams more and what the teams need, the guys that they could be looking at, the options that these teams have at each pick. So if you have any thoughts about what I do for the Eagles, what I do for the rest of the league, what I do leading up to the Eagles pick, leave your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate it greatly. It's always more fun when you guys are going back and forth in the comments, even if you're disagreeing with me and telling me how wrong I am about a pick that's going to happen. I think this draft is the most unpredictable draft I can remember in a long time, and part of that's due to COVID, no combine. Part of that's due to a lot of players opting out last year. There's not a lot of data on this draft, or as much as there is on usual drafts, and this is going to be a really wild, Wild West type draft. I think a lot of the things we think about where players are going and the ranges that they have could be completely wrong because we just have so much less information, so much less in-person visits, and just way less knowledge on what these teams are going to do than I think we usually have. So I think mock drafts are even more of a dart throw than usual. However, we're going to do our best to try to predict what's going to happen tomorrow to the best of my ability. And I'm going to also talk about what I would do if I were these teams at these positions. But then I will make the pick that I think is most likely to happen. And on some of these, I had a couple Twitter polls that I wanted to talk about that I just concluded recently, that I conducted yesterday on my Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. for who these teams should take with these selections. But we didn't have to do that for the first pick, where I'm going to start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are taking quarterback Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. If you watch the top 50 overall episode, you know how high I am on Trevor Lawrence, quarterback out of Clemson. I think he's the best quarterback prospect of my lifetime. So I think that says a lot right there, and I'm not going to really bemoan it too much further. This pick has been set in stone, I almost want to say, before this year, but really, this pick's been set in stone since Trevor Lawrence was a freshman winning a national championship. We knew he would be the 2021 first pick of the draft, and nothing changed at any point in that. It's a shame he never got a Heisman. He probably would have if he didn't get COVID this year, but otherwise, he is a pretty much perfect college prospect and the best one I've ever seen in my lifetime, let alone a college quarterback. So let's move on to the second pick. With the New York Jets, I conducted a Twitter poll that 64 voters of you conducted in, and Zach Wilson won 55% of the poll on who the Jets should take. Justin Fields taking up 28%, Trey Lance taking up 8%, and Mac Jones taking up 9%. If it was me making the call, it would be Justin Fields, who I have 7 overall, but I have him as my number 2 quarterback overall. But it's clear that they're going pretty far down my list and taking Zach Wilson, quarterback out of BYU. Do I agree with it? No. Do I understand it? Yes. I completely understand it. He has tremendous upside. Some people say they see Patrick Mahomes in him. Some people say they see Baker Mayfield in him. I do indeed see a little Johnny Manziel and Mitch Trubisky, but that's beside the point. Zach Wilson is going to be the second pick of the draft, and I get it. It's just not the pick that I would make. I would have went with Justin Fields. Paul Grosskreutz said, going to set him back even more. If you're talking about the Jets, I agree. I think that is a bad pick for the New York Jets. I think it should be Justin Fields or Trey Lance, but really, I think it should be Justin Fields. And we move on to the 49ers, who apparently Justin Fields isn't even in the conversation for the pick. I conducted a poll that had 57 votes. Justin Fields took 49%. Mac Jones took 32%. And Trey Lance took 19%. Apparently, this decision is down to Mac Jones and Trey Lance. And I think they're going to make the wrong decision. I would take Trey Lance because I think it's a perfect fit for Shanahan to build on beyond this year, not just for this year. Trey Lance is a project, but apparently they're not keeping Jimmy G around, according to rumors that we'll get to in a minute. But I believe that they will be taking Mac Jones, regardless of what I think they should do. So the number 2 and number 3 picks are my number 26 and 27 overall players on the board, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. So we're moving on to the 4th pick and the Atlanta Falcons. I, for some reason, feel like I have a lot of Twitter followers that are Atlanta Falcons fans. So hopefully you Atlanta Falcons fans are watching. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments. I had 43 votes. Of who should the Falcons take, 55% of them said Kyle Pitts. I'm not even going to bemoan it too much. There was a report today that it's not even in question. It looks like the pick is going to be Kyle Pitts. I'm going to advance, and that is a correct pick. That's also what I would do. Moving on to the 5th pick and the Cincinnati Bengals. This is an interesting spot. This is really where the draft starts because those first 4 picks, it's pretty set in stone what's going to happen. Out of 50 votes on who should the Bengals draft, 60% said Penei Sewell, 30% said Jamar Chase, and 10% said Rashawn Slater. I think that the correct pick, even though I have him number 9 overall, is Penei Sewell. It seems like it's down to Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase, and I understand Jamar Chase is Joe Burrow's college buddy. I completely get it. He's a great prospect. I have him number 5 overall. I have him as a better prospect than Penei Sewell, but I do think that they're the same tier of prospect, and the Bengals have a desperate need at the offensive line position to protect that man, Joe Burrow, who has a scar on his knee that is very noticeable. They tried to do a photo shoot. That's the only thing anyone talked about from it. I do think there's a chance that the Detroit Lions, who apparently are in love with Jamar Chase, could move up above Miami at number 6 to move up to number 5 and take Jamar Chase and have the Bengals move back to 7, take Penei Sewell. But the only wrench in that is that the Miami Dolphins have apparent interest in Penei Sewell after their trade of Eric Flowers yesterday. So that makes it a tough decision. I'm going to say that a trade does not happen, and I'm going to say the Bengals take their guy, Penei Sewell, offensive tackle out of Oregon, to be a sure thing stopgap offensive tackle for the next 10 years to protect Joe Burrow, who's hopefully also there for the next 10 years. And that is what I think they should do. Joe Burrow might demand they take Jamar Chase, and honestly, if that's the case, Joe Burrow is your franchise. Maybe you say yes and you just take offensive lineman later on in the draft. I'm starting to be a little more open to the idea of it, and then as I was a little bit ago, as I was a few weeks ago. We're pulling up a full report over here. I didn't mean to do that, but we're scrolling back up, and the Miami are up with the number 6 pick of the draft. This is an interesting pick to me. I don't know what they're going to do if Penei Sewell's off the board. I think Penei Sewell is someone that they would take if he's there at 6. That's why that 5, 6, 7 scenario is going to be interesting to see what happens. But I'm going to say that they go with a guy that they spent a week and a half with in the Senior Bowl, and I'm going with Devonta Smith, who is what I think they should pick. I think that they should take Devonta Smith. I think that Jamar Chase will obviously be in play. His college teammate Jalen Waddle will be in play. Penei Sewell will be the pick if he's there, I think. And Rashawn Slater will also be in play. But I'm going with Devonta Smith to team back up with Tua Tagovailoa, and as an upset, as the first receiver off the board at number 6 overall. And we are moving on to the Detroit Lions at number 7, who are really interesting. They are really in a full rebuild mode. There's not many positions that they don't need help at. I don't think that they will take a corner due to them taking Jeff Okudah number 3 overall last year. I don't think that they'll invest another high first-round pick at cornerback. I think that they will look at wide receiver. They will look at offensive tackle, and they might even look at the quarterback position. And this is what I'm going to talk about the quarterback position. With the rumors of Jimmy G to New England, with Teddy Bridgewater to Denver, with Sam Darnold to Carolina, all of these places that we thought were quarterback destinations in the draft are dwindling down, or so we think. Some of these teams could still be interested in quarterbacks. Jared Goff is not going to preclude Detroit from taking a quarterback, but I think that they don't love either of these guys, and I think that that is a theme throughout a lot of this draft. So we might see these quarterbacks fall. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. We'll see what happens in this draft. I don't have the Lions taking a quarterback. I have them taking Jamar Chase, wide receiver out of LSU. The reports are that they are enamored by Jamar Chase, and who could not be? I completely understand. He's my number 3 wide receiver overall, which some people think is blasphemous and disrespectful, but I have him top 5 overall and number 5 on my board. So I don't think that that's too disrespectful. We're moving on to the 8th pick, the Carolina Panthers, who, if there's any position they don't need on the board, it's wide receiver, with how good their top 3 wide receivers were last year. I don't think that they'll even take a glance at Jalen Waddle. I think this pick is coming down to, are they taking a cornerback in Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn, Caleb Farley? Are they taking a QB in Justin Fields and Trey Lance, even though they just traded for Sam Darnold? Or are they going to take an offensive lineman to protect Sam Darnold, which is a big-time need for the Carolina Panthers, and that's what I have happening. I have them going with offensive tackle Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern University. I don't think it's the pick that I would make. I think that I would go with cornerback Patrick Surtain, but that is not the pick that I think they will make. And then here is where a trade is going to happen, in my opinion. The Denver Broncos obviously could still take a QB if we're looking at, they did not give up too much to get Teddy Bridgewater. They gave up a 6th-round pick. It is very, very possible that they say, you know what, we're trading Drew Lock. Teddy Bridgewater's our 1-year starter. We're taking Trey Lance, or we're taking Justin Fields, and he's starting, and Teddy's the backup. There is definitely a chance that that's still happening, but knowing the Broncos, they hate to invest first-round picks in QBs. Obviously, they haven't done it in a very long time. So I think that they make a phone call to the New England Patriots, and I think the Patriots and the Broncos get a trade done here. We are struggling here. The Draft Network is struggling to do this. So what we are going to do... Oh, okay. I see what's going on here. Duh. Patriots and Broncos. The Broncos are trading the 9th pick overall to the New England Patriots for the 15th and the 3rd-round pick. We're doing a 2nd-round pick. Let's do the 1st and the 2nd. The Patriots need their guy, and the only reason I'm doing this is because of the rumor from yesterday, or from today, that Justin Fields was about to be a New England Patriot because they were trying to trade up to number 4, but the Atlanta Falcons wanted to stick at 4 and take Kyle Pitts. So the only reason I'm having them move up to take Justin Fields is because of that rumor. However, I think they could stick at 15, and there's a chance Justin Fields lasts all the way to 15, and the Patriots get a steal of all steals in Justin Fields at 15 overall. But I'm saying that they move up to number 9 and take Justin Fields, a small price to pay for a franchise quarterback for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. So we're at pick number 10, Dallas Cowboys. Not even going to waste any time. It's the most obvious mock draft pick I've ever seen. Patrick Surtain, cornerback out of Alabama. It's a need. He's one of the best players on the board. There we go. So the New York Giants are up with the 11th pick overall on the board, and this is a crazy pick. There's rumors that they love Devonta Smith. However, he's off the board. They should be looking at a quarterback in Trey Lance and Justin Fields, but clearly they're developing Daniel Jones. We'll see how that goes over the next couple of years. There's rumors that they love Mika Parsons out of Penn State. And there's also rumors that they love J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. This is based on nothing other than DraftKings. The most likely guy to go on the most likely odds for the New York Giants to take is Kwity Paye. Yeah, that's right, Kwity Paye. But I have all the way down here at 25 overall. I think he's a Dave Gettleman guy. I think the Giants are going to try to move back, but everyone freaked out when there was that rumor about the Eagles wanting Kwity Paye at number 12. I think that was to entice the Giants to just take Kwity Paye. I don't think we have any interest in Kwity Paye, but that's just a guess. I think he seems like a Dave Gettleman guy. He always talks about the hog mollies. I think this is a Dave Gettleman pick, and they stick and take Kwity Paye, which will infuriate many while they should be taking Jalen Waddle or a QB, in my opinion. And then we get to the Philadelphia Eagles pick at number 12 overall. And Trey Lance is on the board, but I don't think you can take a North Dakota State quarterback after how this fall played out. I think you have to give Jalen Hurts weapons to succeed going forward. I do think that they will look at J.C. Horn at number 17. I do think that they will look at Christian Darrisaw, Elijah Vera-Tucker, Tevin Jenkins, Samuel Cosmi. They'll look at the O-linemen. They will look at Kwity Paye if he's there. They'll look at Gregory Rousseau, which Elliott Shore-Parks said. They will look at Mika Parsons. But I think that Howie cannot ignore Jalen Waddle's speed. He was talking about speed the whole press conference. He has to get speed on this offense, and Jalen Waddle is the correct way to do it. Wide receiver out of Alabama, number 12 to the Philadelphia Eagles. We would be doing absolute jumping jacks on the stream, which is going to be great tomorrow night on the Painted Lines. Check it out. We are going to be streaming the whole first round leading up to the Eagles pick, then a separate stream for the Eagles pick, and then going back to the regular stream for the rest of the draft. It is going to be a lot of fun. We have all the guys from Party on Broad and a couple of the other regulars from the Painted Lines set to join us. It's going to be a great time chopping it up during the draft. Hopefully Howie and the Eagles don't ruin our time. But I think if they go with Jalen Waddle like I have in my mock here, I don't think there's going to be anyone complaining. So we move on to the LA Chargers, who clearly need to protect Justin Herbert. We don't want to see what happened to Joe Burrow happen to Justin Herbert. So I think the only players in play here are Darrisaw, Elijah Vera-Tucker, Tevin Jenkins, Samuel Cosmi, Liam Eichenberg. It has to be offensive lineman. Maybe you can go edge rusher, but I think they have to go offensive lineman. Now I'm going to say that they take the big boy out of Virginia Tech, Christian Darrisaw, which is what I think that they should do. And we move on to this kind of the same thing with Minnesota. Although I will say Minnesota taking Trey Lance, quarterback, he's from Minnesota, makes a lot of sense. You know, Kirk Cousins is not there forever. Trey Lance would be an interesting pick and a rebuilding pick. Maybe you even trade Kirk Cousins if anyone was interested. But I think Trey Lance is a really interesting pick for Minnesota. I don't think that they pull the trigger. Mike Zimmer wants to win right now to save his job. So I'm going to go with Elijah Vera-Tucker. I think that they probably should take Trey Lance, but they will take Elijah Vera-Tucker, which is a good pick as well. They need an offensive lineman. He's by far the best one on the board for me. So I think it's a fine pick for the Minnesota Vikings at 14 overall. So we come back to the Denver Broncos at 15, and I think that they're doing absolute sprinting around the office. I think they're psyched. I think they're jacked. All the other adjectives you want to use. I think that they want either Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah or Mika Parsons. I think that they opt for Mika Parsons here at 15 overall. A linebacker is a clear need for them, and I think that they would be very happy to move back to 15, pick up a second rounder, and take Mika Parsons. And then you look at Arizona Cardinals coming up at 16 overall. This is a very, very interesting pick to me. I think that I've been married to this pick since the beginning of me doing mocks with J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. Cornerback is a big-time need for the Arizona Cardinals, and I think J.C. Horn's the best one on the board, and I think he fits that cocky, arrogant Cardinals cornerback to replace Patrick Peterson, who was there for a long time. To a T, I think he's the correct pick here for Arizona to go get J.C. Horn. They don't need an edge because of J.J. Watt, his addition, and they also have a bunch of other rushers that can get to the quarterback. You have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, very similar to Isaiah Simmons. They don't have a need at safety. So I think that they go with a corner instead of a receiver to help out Kyler, which I think he'll be campaigning for. I think he'll be let down again this year. I think they'll take J.C. Horn. And now we get to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that this is my favorite mock pick of the draft in terms of fit, in terms of scheme, in terms of how likely I think it is to happen. I love this mock pick. I think it is I think it's going to happen. And I think part of the reason is Mike Mayock. What did he do before he was the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders? He was calling Notre Dame games. John Gruden loves taking guys from big name schools, and they need a linebacker. This guy is an absolute football player, a leader, a dog, everything that John Gruden has shown that he would want, and even reaching on in guys like Cleveland Farrell and Jonathan Abram and people like that. They want dogs. They want leaders. They want guys who get to the ball, force fumbles, interceptions, sacks. They want guys who can do it all, fast dudes. And I'm going to go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker out of Notre Dame. I love the pick for the Raiders. I think he fits to a T to Gus Bradley's defense and to what the Raiders want to do as an organization. I think it is the perfect pick. And we get to another pick that I absolutely love for the Miami Dolphins, and I think it's the correct pick. They're going to be looking at both sides of the ball on the line. I think this pick is down to offensive line or defensive line, whether that be Russo, Phillips, Ojulari, Owa, Basham, Tevin Jenkins, Samuel Cosby, Liam Eichenberg. I don't think the running backs will be in play. I'm sorry, Mike Small of the Killing Me Smalls podcast. I know he wants Najee Harris here for the Miami Dolphins. He's a Dolphins fan. But I think they go with probably the guy I like more than consensus, more than any other player on the board, Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher, defensive end out of Miami. Right-clicked way too many times. I love that mock pick as well as what I would do if I was the GM. Gregory Rousseau, defensive end to Miami Dolphins. He's my number 10 overall player going at 18, so I would love the value there. At number 19, I think Trey Lance's slide ends. I can't believe I had him fall this far. I love the guy. I have him 8th overall. I just don't see the need for Washington to move up. Who do they need to move up above? The team behind them, probably. I think that 19 and 20, or Washington and Chicago, will end up with Trey Lance and Tevin Jenkins. I'm not sure which will end up with which, but those are the two players I expect to go to 19-20 if these teams don't move up for Trey Lance. I'm saying Trey Lance goes to Washington to learn from Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I'm saying at 20, even though I think Chicago should look at receiver to improve their offense, I think they look at offensive line, and they have to go all the way down to 40 on my big board to Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State. And now we're at 21 to the Indianapolis Colts. And I think that Colts are the best player available type team. Last year, they traded their first for DeForest Buckner. I think they just will take whoever they think has the best value at this spot. For me, that would probably be Terrace Marshall. I think that they need the big receiver help there to team up with T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, and the other receivers down there in Indy. But I think they're going to go with an edge rusher and someone that many people love. If he checks out from injury perspective, he could go even higher than this. But I'm going with defensive end edge rusher Jalen Phillips out of Miami. And I think that is a good pick there. It's not the pick I would make, but it's still extremely solid for the Indianapolis Colts and a GM in Chris Ballard who's done a fantastic job. So moving on to the number 22 pick with the Tennessee Titans. They need D-backs. They also could use a receiver. They could use some help on the O-line, but I think that secondary is the number one need, maybe in football. Like the Titans need secondary more than maybe any contender team needs any position. So I like the Titans to go and find the best secondary guy. Many people are mocking them a corner. I'm looking at Trevon Moehrig, safety out of TCU. It's who I would take if I was them, and it's who I think they will take. Caleb Farley has too many red flags for them to lock up, and they've had some bad luck with injury risk guys like Isaiah Wilson in the past. So I think that they will just lock up a sure thing in Trevon Moehrig in a pick that no one could complain about at 22 overall. Just a stud of a football player that I think Vrabel would fall in love with. And at number 23 overall, the Jets could go a lot of different ways. They could go with a corner. They could go with an edge rusher. They could go with a running back or a receiver to help out Zach Wilson. They could go with an O-lineman to help out Zach Wilson. They have a absolute ton of needs. The New York Jets do. I'm saying they need to fill that pass rusher hole that they've had for like 10 years. They haven't had a good pass rush in a very, very long time. I think that the way that they'll do that is by physical freak Azeez Ojulari, someone who I think Joe Douglas will fall in love with. It's not necessarily the pick I would make. I think that I would go get cornerback Caleb Farley if the medicals check out if I were them. I think with how many picks they have and how early they are in their rebuild, you can take a chance on Caleb Farley. You could turn out to be one of the better corners in the league for the New York Jets. But I think they go with Azeez Ojulari, outside linebacker, out of Georgia. He can also put his hand in the ground and play defensive end, but he's an edge rusher out of Georgia. Azeez Ojulari, I think, would be a solid pick for the New York Jets. At number 24 overall, this is a prime trade back spot, in my opinion. I think someone will move up from the second round to take this spot, if I had to guess. I couldn't come up with a team to do it and a target for a team to go do it. Maybe Kadarius Toney, maybe Elijah Moore, maybe even of one of the running backs. I don't think the Steelers will take Najee Harris at 24 just because everyone has it, and the Steelers never do what everyone expects them to do. I don't think that they'll take a running back. I think if they stay in this spot, they will look to the offensive line, and they will take Liam Eichenberg out of his college that they take many players out of Notre Dame, to my chagrin. I think they take Liam Eichenberg, offensive tackle, out of Notre Dame. He's a plug-and-play offensive tackle who can play right away, and that is a big-time need for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're another team like the Jets. With so many picks, I think they should take a look at Caleb Farley to fill the need that they haven't filled since they traded Jalen Ramsey. But I think that they'll look to pair Trevor Lawrence up with his old college teammate from Clemson, running back Travis Etienne, out of Clemson. I don't love the pick. I wouldn't take a running back. And I think Jason Robinson is absolutely fine. I would probably look at Caleb Farley, like I said, if I were them, because they're so early in a rebuild. But I think they take Travis Etienne out of Clemson. Moving on to 26 at Cleveland. This is another team like Indy. They don't have too many clear, glaring needs. I think this is a best player available situation. I think they should take a look at the receivers such as Terrace Marshall, Kadarius Toney, Elijah Moore. But I think that they'll beef up what they think is a strength, and they'll continue to add to it by going what they think is the best player available, someone who analytic guys love, and the Cleveland Browns analytic. I expect them to love Jason Owa out of Penn State, edge rusher, and that is who I have them taking. I think they could also look at Carlos Basham, Christian Barmore, play receivers like I mentioned. They could also look at Caleb Farley. But moving on to number 27, the Baltimore Ravens, who have two picks at 27 and 31. I could see them making a move up for a guy that they value in the teens or maybe even a little bit higher, because they have that ammo now after trading with the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think that they clearly need a receiver. They should be taking Terrace Marshall here. I think it's clear, though, that they love Carlos Basham Jr. He seems to be linked to them in every mock draft. And he's someone that I like a lot, and I would love to pick for Baltimore. But they need to make sure they take a receiver at that 31 spot to help out Lamar Jackson. At number 28, the New Orleans Saints are going to take a guy that I'm not very high on, in my opinion. I think they should look at the receivers. It seems like I keep saying that, but I keep not mocking the receivers to people. But I'm going all the way down to Zaven Collins, who I think makes a ton of sense. Linebacker is a big need. So is edge, and he could play either according to some. So I think they go with Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. I think it makes a ton of sense, and it seems like a player that the Saints would absolutely love to take. So moving on to number 29 with the Green Bay Packers, with all the things that they keep saying about Aaron Rodgers, you have to think that they're going to want to help him out, and they're going to want to get him some help at the wide receiver position, because he complained about it last year. They never draft wide receivers. I think that they should take a Terrace Marshall, a Kadarius Toney, but I think they'll go down and take Rashad Bateman, a favorite of many NFL draft guys. Not a favorite of mine. I have him wide receiver 8, but I still have him as a first rounder, showing the depth and the top heaviness of this wide receiver class this year. I have Rashad Bateman going 29 overall to the Packers. At 30 overall, the Bills are another team. They don't have too many glaring needs. I resisted the need to put them to get a running back, but with Najee Harris on the board, he does it all. I think the Bills will take Najee Harris, even if I would look at a high upside guy like Terrace Marshall, Kadarius Toney, Caleb Farley. I think that they will look to Najee Harris. Moving on to 31, I think they end the slide of one of my favorite guys, Terrace Marshall Jr., and the Ravens take the perfect complement to Lamar Jackson, a tall receiver who can go up and get it in the red zone. Terrace Marshall Jr. out of LSU. With 2 picks, I think they can say, screw the medicals, be damned, and say, Terrace Marshall, you're coming along, since they had 2 picks here in the first round and a second rounder coming up. And then to close out the first round at the 32nd pick, I absolutely could see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Kadarius Toney or Elijah Moore or one of these little guy wide receivers who would absolutely flourish with Tampa Bay. And I'm sure they absolutely want to go to Tampa Bay, but I think that they'll view Christian Barmore, who should have went higher. I just could not find a spot for him. I think they'll view Christian Barmore as a steal at 32 and the best player available in a very weak interior D-line draft. And that is a position that they are very old at. So I could see them viewing that as a need going forward and locking up Christian Barmore. And that is going to wrap up our mock draft at number 32 with Christian Barmore. Just to recap, we had the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Trevor Lawrence. We had the New York Jets take Wilson. The 49ers taking Mac Jones. The Falcons taking Pitts. The Cincinnati taking Penei Sewell. The Miami Dolphins taking Devonta Smith. The Detroit Lions taking Jamar Chase. The Panthers taking Rashawn Slater. England and the Denver Broncos making a trade from 15 to 9 to move up to some fields for the New England Patriots at 9. 10, I had the Dallas Cowboys taking cornerback Patrick Surtain. At 11, I had the New York Giants reaching and taking Kwity Paye. At number 12, I had the Philadelphia Eagles fulfilling dreams and taking receivers in Alabama. At number 13, the Los Angeles Chargers taking Christian. So I have at number 14, the Minnesota Vikings taking Elijah Vera-Tucker. I have at number 15, the Denver Broncos taking Mika Parsons. I have at number 18, the Cardinals taking J.C. Horn. I have at number 17, the Las Vegas Raiders taking linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I have at number 18, the Miami Dolphins taking Gregory Rousseau. I have at number 19, the Washington football team, otherwise known on here as Washington apparently, taking quarterback Trey Lance from North Dakota State. I have at number 20, the Chicago Bears taking offensive tackle Tevin Jenkins. Number 21, I have the Indianapolis Colts taking edge rusher Jalen Phillips. Number 22, I have the Tennessee Titans taking Trevon Moehrig. Number 23, I have the Jets taking Azeez Ojulari. At number 24, I have the Steelers taking Liam Eichenberg. At number 25, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking running back Travis Etienne. At number 26, I have the Cleveland Browns taking Jason Owa. At number 27, I have the Baltimore Ravens taking Carlos Basham Jr. At number 28, I have the New Orleans Saints taking Zaven Collins. At number 29, I have the Green Bay Packers taking Rashad Bateman. At number 30, I have the Buffalo Bills taking Najee Harris. At number 31, I have the Baltimore Ravens taking Terrace Marshall. And at number 32, I have Tampa Bay taking Christian Barmore to round out the first round. And thank you for joining us for my first round mock draft on Party on Broad. You can follow at Party on Broad, and you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ on Twitter. You can follow at The Painted Lines on Twitter and subscribe wherever you're watching us on YouTube or Twitch. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to the last mock that I'm going to be doing. We are one day away from the draft. Can't wait. Please join us on the stream tomorrow night as we recap the draft and go through the draft and react in live time. It's going to be an absolute blast with the guys from Party on Broads and the rest of the Painted Lines regulars. Please go check out one of the earlier Party on Broads from this week where I did my top 50 overall big board. That is really where I place my value in the mock draft system. I care more about my big board than I do predicting what teams are going to do, especially in this wild West year. I don't think that anyone is going to have a good percentage on what they do on their mock drafts because I think this year is so unpredictable. But my big board is really what I pride myself in. Amazing draft, man. I can't wait. Thank you. Thank you, Rufus Rothers. Rufus has been the man through draft offseason on Party on Broad. He seems like we love a lot of the same guys. My top guy available going into the second round would be wide receiver Kadarius Toney, by the way, out of Florida. So that would be an interesting guy at the top of the second round to be looking at for the Eagles or for any team. But that was my mock draft. Thank you guys for joining us. Join us tomorrow for the draft on the live stream, on the Painted Minds, on Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch. And thank you for joining us, and enjoy the draft.